It's been a hard week for Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. He's been dumped by Univision, NBC, Miss USA, Macy's, and others for his racially charged remarks about immigration.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
But instead of backing down, Trump doubled down.
No, there's no apology because what I said is right. I mean, what I said is 100% right. There is tremendous distress on the border. You know that better than anybody.
Despite all of this, Trump is polling higher than before, but many are calling it a black eye for the Republican Party. Jack, should the GOP distance itself from Trump?
There will be infighting, Morris. Trump, it's a brilliant move. He's got to move to the right. I think it's a brilliant move. Substantively, he knows it's inflammatory. There's a much better way to say that. You can say we should be doing what we did in the early 20th century where we wanted higher quality people. We should insist that these nations south of the border send persons educated and with money. You don't have to use the word rapist. On the other hand,
Republicans embarrassed by having this guy in their party?
Well, I don't know that it's a question of embarrassment. Remember, all of these people have to move to the right. Trump has to win in South Carolina. He's got to win in New Hampshire. He's got to win with the Iowa evangelicals. And Morris, you know, the television stuff, Trump has lost nothing. NBC, he's out of television for the next year anyway. This business of NBC and Univision, it's a big joke. He can't be in TV for 12 months anyway. He's running for president. I think it's a win-win. It's politically savvy. Substantively, the language, of course, is inartful and extreme, but politically, it's a big win.
All right, so you say he moved to the right. Some think he just went off the cliff to the right, but whatever. Mark, are Democrats happy that Trump is giving Hillary a break from the spotlight?
You know, what Trump said is absolutely offensive. I always thought he was a joke, and now he's worse than a joke. He's
but now the spotlight's off Hillary. Are you happy about that?
You know, to me, the most interesting thing is that the Republicans support this, that he's second in the polls. That tells me something about the Republican Party, and in that respect, it does help the Democrats.
Well, Mark, what do you disagree with?
How could they support this absolute
All right, so use of the word, I concur and stipulate, use of the word rapist is ridiculous and inflammatory.
However, and they all bring drugs. I mean, come on, the Mexican Americans are some of the hardest working people in the United States.
The basic thrust of this, and you should agree with this, if you contrast what's going on in immigration now with what went on 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the U.S. was insistent on quality in immigration. We're not doing that now. We are taking every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and there is a big point to that in immigration policy.
Jack, you're trying to whitewash what Trump said. You're trying to make it a completely different thing. What he said was Mexico is sending us their drug dealers and their rapists, and maybe he assumes some of them are good people. He also attacked people in South America, Central America. He did a vicious racist attack on virtually every Latino in America.
I don't see it as racist. I see it as use of unduly inflammatory language. But the basic point, Mark, here's what I want to press. You must agree with this. Mexico is not sending their best.
Mexico isn't sending them. Mexico is a corrupt and often dangerous country. But the Mexican people that come here are just trying to live the American dream like anyone else and escape that corrupt and dangerous country.
But that's another issue. Of course they want to move up. Of course that's true. But the point is, shouldn't we insist on quality in immigration in terms of people coming into this country?
I'm telling you, they're quality. The people that come here work very hard. You can't find harder working immigrants than Mexican Americans.
Some people have Kanye and the Kardashians. The politicos got Donald Trump. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Meanwhile, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says he's all in for 2016, and he doesn't plan to sugarcoat anything.
I am not running for President of the United States as a surrogate for being elected prom king of America. I am not looking to be the most popular guy who looks in your eyes every day and tries to figure out what you want to hear, say it, and then turn around and do something else. When I stand up on a stage like this in front of all of you, there is one thing you will know for sure. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and that's what America needs right now.
Let Christie and Don Trump deal with Vladimir Putin. That's all I got to say. Now, Christie's announcement makes 14 Republican candidates, and 2 more governors are waiting in the wings. If the number reaches 16, it would be the largest pool in 100 years. Jack, what's going on with your party? Is it possible to have a front runner at this point?
No. Remember what I said, Morris. I predicted about 6 months ago. I said if the number reaches 20, it could reach 40. The dynamics of this race on the Republican side may well be in their infancy. We don't know who else else could announce. We don't know what else is going to happen. Christie has the same challenge that a Marco Rubio has, that a Jeb Bush has, and that a Donald Trump has. They've all got to move to the right to survive those early primaries. Christie's undefined. We know very little about his social views. We're going to learn more. I love that kind of speech. I think that appeals to many Republicans. It'll play particularly well in a place like New Hampshire, but he remains very undefined.
Jeb Bush took a major step by releasing 33 years of financial records. Bush says he paid more to the IRS than Hillary Clinton despite earning less. Mark, could Jeb's transparency damage Hillary's "I'm just like you" tactic?
Not really. If you look at one of the reasons why Clinton paid a slightly smaller tax percentage is because she gave, and Bill gave, $10 million to charity, and Bush gave less than $1 million to charity. So that means he has a higher tax rate, because when you give a lot to charity, you have a lower tax rate. That's really the only difference here. I do want to say real quick about Jack saying that the Republicans are moving to the right. Chris Christie's operative word was mean. There's a reason he used it. And it's just interesting to me that when Jack says moving to right, I say it's mean and racist. Which one do you want? Either way, it's moving to the right.
Well, I don't see it. I don't know what's I think Chris Christie, I think he's enormously progressive
Trump
on
is
race
racist.
issues. I don't know. Trump, I
Chris
think
Christie's mean.
Trump, I think used bad. Trump, I just think used bad language. One of the things I kind of agree with Mark on the Clinton. Sure, they gave more money. That's a good tax analysis. I think he's right on the money. But the issue is not taxes, Morris. The Clintons are going to be dogged with this foundation and the money. You see the big Washington Post story a few days ago.
It's a good foundation.
Chelsea
It does
Clinton,
charitable things.
Even Chelsea Clinton is receiving $65,000 for a speech. The Clintons are going to have to account for a lot of these kinds of things.
How much does Jeb Bush get for a speech?
I don't know.
A lot more
I
than
think you're right. I think the foundation may turn out to be like an iceberg. There's a lot underwater that we haven't seen yet. Now, back to the Democratic side. Former Virginia Senator Jim Webb has announced he's running, bringing the official tally up to 5. Mark, is this a sign that some Democrats are losing faith in Hillary?
No, Jim Webb has no chance. And I say this as a Virginian who voted for Jim Webb. Frankly, once he said what he said about the Confederate flag, I think he put the nail in his own political coffin. Now, Jim Webb is no threat to Hillary Clinton.
What do you think, Jack?
No, I agree with that. It looks like I don't see anyone who could come up with the money, who could come up with the stamina, who could come up with the organization, even begin a challenge for Hillary. I think O'Malley's not a joke. I do think Bernie Sanders and Jim Webb are both jokes. I see her as having no opposition. If I were Hillary Clinton, I would duck. I would duck and let Republicans duke it out for the next 6 months, because Hillary Clinton at this point cannot receive positive coverage. And I'm sure Mark would agree with this. Any coverage of her right now is going to be negative, and most of the coverage is negative. She's not getting any positive press. It's either the Benghazi investigation on the Hill, the emails, the foundation. She's trapped in a cycle of no positive press, so the only thing she can do and should do is duck.
The only person who could have beaten Hillary Clinton was Elizabeth Warren. She's the only one.
Chatter is also increasing that Vice President Joe Biden might step into the race. Mark, should your party go with Joe? Polls suggest he might unseat Hillary.
I'm a big fan of Joe Biden. I'm a longtime fan of Joe Biden. I don't think he's going to run, and I don't think he can unseat Hillary.
I disagree, Morrison. I predict, I don't know when, I predict.
You mentioned a month or so ago that
right here on this air, I predicted Jumpin' Joe would plunge into this. One thing you remember, I disagree with Mark here. One thing you remember about Joe Biden, and I'm getting old enough, I remember this stuff. He is a very ambitious man. He started thinking about running for the presidency shortly after being elected to the Senate. In 1988, he ran for the presidency. He might have been a good candidate, except for the plagiarism thing. He's now over all that. I think Biden could be a very strong candidate.
I think he could be a strong candidate.
He appeals to both the left and the center in the Democratic Party.
I do think Joe Biden would be a strong candidate, and if he were to enter the race, then we'd have a real race there.
All right, let's see what happens. Switching gears now to Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. During his presidential announcement, he said he was done with describing Americans by their ethnicity, adding that, quote, "We are not Indian Americans, African Americans, Irish Americans, rich Americans, or poor Americans. We are all Americans." The comment hit a nerve, and many Indian Americans called him out for not embracing his heritage. The Republican Party has had a hard time reaching out to minorities, Jack. Was this a bad move?
Oh, I think Jindal himself is evidence of the diversity of the party. I don't think it's a bad move. I think it's a great move. I think that's exactly the message we should send. It reminds me, every time somebody says, what do Hispanic families want? My God, they want the same thing everybody else wants. It's not about skin color, skin pigmentation. It's about they want wealth. They want prosperity. They want their boy to go to Harvard. They want everything that everybody else wants. And I think that's the message. That's the message that the Republican Party has got to put forth. We're not interested in color. We want the American dream for everybody.
Tea Party Senator Ted Cruz also became the subject of internet trolls this week. The presidential candidate did a video for BuzzFeed where he pretended to audition for a role on The Simpsons.
Hi, I'm Ted. With Harry Shearer retiring, I'm auditioning for any part I can get in The Simpsons. Smithers, release the hounds. Excellent. Hidely ho, neighbor. Oakley dokley, neighborino.
BuzzFeed is known for its liberal views. In fact, an ad that played before Cruz's video promoted marriage equality. Mark, what's your take on Cruz's audition? Would you hire him?
I think Cruz is making himself to be a bigger joke than Donald Trump. I mean, you know, when a politician tries to be funny, they better succeed, because if they don't, they just look ridiculous, and he looked ridiculous.
I kind of agree, Morris. It reminds me years ago when I did Bill Maher's old show, the executive producer, I had brought jokes out there, and he said to me when I got out there and tried to read the jokes, he said,